Hi, you're listening to God, Ghosts, and Government, a weekly conversation with Senator Kim Jackson, where she'll reflect on her journey as an Episcopal priest, farmer, first-time state legislator, and much more. I'm your host, Sharitha J., and I'm honored to share this space with you. Let's begin. Hey, it's your girl Sharitha J, and I'm back for another episode of God, Ghosts, and Government with our favorite senator, Senator Kim Jackson.
Hey Sharitha J, it's good to see you.
It's good to see you as well. How are you?
Girl, I'm good. You know, I would say Thursday is our Friday, and so I'm usually like a little tired, but actually I've got some energy this week, so I'm feeling good.
I think it's because you get to see me on Thursdays.
It just,
bring the good vibes, you know?
Absolutely.
It's a good way to end the week.
Right? It is.
So I hear it's been a busy and kind of a successful week, so I want to get into what's happening, because, I mean, last week you talked about, it's a slow start, and then in true Senator Jackson fashion, she goes out and just puts herself into the community and getting things done. So will you update us on what's happening?
Sure, it has been a big week. So I had 2 bills heard this week in committee. One in agriculture, and then the other, interestingly, in insurance. So you should be asking questions because I don't write anything about insurance, but that's where it went.
Okay. Help me out.
Yeah, so obviously my ag bill is my hemp bill.
Right.
Very straightforward, no big deal. Like right now, if you have a felony of any kind, you cannot apply to grow hemp. This says, look, if you have a felony that's related to drugs, you're going to have to wait 10 years. Make sure you keep your nose clean, as I said to an interviewer the other day, for 10 years, and then you can apply to grow hemp.
Okay.
And that went through ag, no problem. I did learn. I'm like, I don't know why nobody told me this. I've been doing this for 2 years now.
Yeah.
But heads are like props to Bo Hatchett, Senator Bo Hatchett. He's a Republican, came in with me. He did the sweetest thing. He came to me the day after ag committee because there was this whole like awkward moment. My bill was presented. There were no questions. It was all good. And the chair is like, well, what's the will of the committee? And everybody's kind of looking around at each other. And then finally somebody makes the motion, right? So Bo comes up to me. He's like, I just want to share a little tip with you. Next time, ask somebody in advance to make the motion to do pass so the person knows that it's their job. I was like 3 years in, and now I finally learned the tip. Got you.
Wow.
So that was great. Anyway, so that was hemp. No big deal in ag, as one would expect. And then 3 days later, my bill shows up in insurance, and it's my public safety bill. So it's if a public safety officer dies by suicide,
Right.
their family will receive the death benefit just as other public safety officers' families do when they die in the line of duty. It's not an insurance bill.
Okay.
But I think that they were trying to find some more objective people who could, kind of look at the bill, because pretty much everybody on public safety, where it should have gone, has already signed it.
Right.
So I think they were going to send it to, people who would look at it a little more closely.
Which we can appreciate.
Yeah.
Because you've done your due diligence. If I recall correctly, I mean, every bill that you've had passed, you've even had to have lawyers come in and check the language. So, I mean, we're not worried about it, right?
No, it was totally fine. There was no problem. And I mean, this bill is a retread, right? Like, I've done this before. People came in, they had their questions. God bless Senator Merritt. She came to my office in advance. She's on the committee, and she's like, here are my questions.
Wow.
Handed them to me. So I was able to know exactly, the statistics that she was going to ask for. I mean, it's the definition of a friendly question, right? So it was very smooth, and I'm really grateful for the committee for hearing. It's a hard subject, and people have a hard time sometimes knowing what to do with the issue. And so I was grateful that the insurance committee, they heard it, they understood, they got it immediately, and acted quite quickly on passing the bill.
Great. So you've been busy with the bill work this week. I mean,
yeah.
So that's 2 bills. And remind me if I'm wrong here, but you did discuss your hemp bill on lawmakers just the previous week. So
that's right.
That's also, you still getting a little bit of traction there too. Like you're making your rounds.
I actually think that because I discussed it on lawmakers, that helped encourage my brother Russ Goodman, the chairman of AG. I think that helped encourage him to go ahead and call that up, because usually they wait a little longer before they start calling Democratic bills up.
Okay.
But I think lawmakers helped.
Excellent. Well, glad that it worked in your favor. So what else do we have coming up with this past week? Because I mean, I happen to be across the way for Common Ground, and I'll name it. It was hard finding parking around the Capitol. It's been very busy.
It's hard finding walking space in the Capitol. Like, you want to book a car, just try to find a space to walk through all the people.
Yeah, so what's been happening under the Gold Dome?
Yeah, I mean, so we had 4-H Day, which at the same time was Young Farmer Day, which at the same time was like Forestry Day. So you had the big old John Deere tractor, not even a tractor, it's like, I don't even know what it's called, but it's huge. That was in the middle of the walkway. We had, is it Varsity Day? I don't know, but Varsity, the food place, like.
Oh, so you couldn't call me.
I'm sorry.
Okay,
I'm sorry. The line was
really
long. So, and I don't think they were asking anybody, what do you have? Because they just kept like passing out boxes. So you had the Varsity, you had like Firefighter Day, so hundreds and hundreds of firefighters were here. I mean, like, it's just tons and tons of people. We are back to pre-pandemic times.
Wow.
Not to mention hundreds of Girl Scouts.
Wow.
It was really, really awesome.
So, 2 questions. 1, Girl Scout cookies. What's up?
Hey, I got mine. So apparently we get like the inside like track.
Yeah.
Because we got our Girl Scout cookies on Monday, but they're not officially released to the public until Saturday. So I got a jump start.
So this is a perk of being a legislator.
Yes, they pay me so well, in cookies. Guess this is to offset the not so great pay.
So you got your cookies. What's your favorite Girl Scout cookie flavor?
Samoas. By far. I will acknowledge, my wife pointed this out, that the name is probably like kind of racist. So, y'all should fix that, Girl Scouts. But it's still my favorite. I think it's called a Caramel Delight.
Okay.
In other parts of the country. Okay. But it doesn't taste quite the same. Yeah.
Look, that hits. So, okay. Well, I hope that you were able to gain access to your favorite cookies. Also, secondly, you mentioned the Firefighter Day here at the Capitol, and I think I saw something about someone getting an award this week.
So I received the Firefighter Legislator of the Year for the Senate side.
Wow.
I will say, I knew about this several months ago. They were going to do a presentation, but then there was a hurricane. So they didn't do it then, because firefighters work when there are hurricanes, right?
Yes.
So they waited to now, but I will say, when I received the word that I was receiving this Firefighter or the Legislator of the Year award, I immediately wrote back to the person, and I was like, this is legitimately one of the greatest honors of my life. Like, I love firefighters so much. The fire service, I think of them as the true heroes. They are our bravest. They are the people that show up first when we really need them. And so it's just like such an honor. And on top of that, they gave me this award even though my bill didn't pass. Like, because it's all about my public safety award, right? Like, that's what it's for. And they were just like, we know it didn't pass, but you fought for us and you see us. and you see our families. And so it's just like, truly, I'm so grateful. You know, like my future goal is to like someday earn an actual like axe. That's my goal. I don't know like what I have to do. Like, I don't know. Maybe if I pass the bill, I'll get an axe. I'm not sure, but that's what I'm aspiring for. I'm putting that out in the universe.
Okay, because if I recall correctly, you were chopping wood last session as like a meditative practice because
I was using that's the chainsaw now.
Okay, so you have a chainsaw. I knew it was something wood related. So you want an actual axe,
and I want a fireman's axe. Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I'm working towards.
And I feel like you would utilize it. I don't know. But
I could put it to use.
I feel like you will find a way. I don't want you to, but I feel like you will find a way to utilize it. So,
yeah.
An axe.
That's I own like a regular axe. I want a fireman's axe, right? I want the firefighters to understand that I love them so much. And I am like so deeply a part of their club that they are willing to give me an axe. I am like throwing this in the universe. I might have to wait till I'm 70 years old to get this, but that's what I'm aspiring towards.
All that CrossFit that you do will pay off in your 70s still.
Throwing the axe.
So, okay.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
I saw some of the photos and it looked like a really beautiful ceremony. So, again, congratulations to you and thank you for fighting for our first responders.
Absolutely. It really is. It's my honor and pleasure to be able to do that. So, I do have a funny story for you.
Okay. Look, I love funny stories and so do our listeners. So.
Right. Okay. So, on one of the days that we were in session, I was sitting at my desk reading some legislation during the prayer. I feel like I should just go ahead and like full confession.
Mm-hmm.
You know, okay. I was like reading some legislation while the preacher was praying. And suddenly I feel this like tap on my shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
And then I see this thing like fall onto my desk. And it's in the middle of the prayer. So I'm like, God, is it you? And I like look behind me to see if like Colton Morris is behind me. I look to see like, did he see this? I look in the press box because they're very close to me. I'm like, did y'all see this? Nobody saw what happened, but I felt it on my shoulder. And then the actual product, what hit me, was sitting on my desk. And so I'm like, what is happening? Okay, Lord, I will stop reading right now and I will listen to this prayer. So I did. I paid attention to the prayer. And then afterwards, I went so that, because I sit under the gallery, basically. Mm-hmm. So, like, the people who are viewing us, they can't really see me because I'm, like, basically right under it.
Okay.
So I go out so I can look up into the gallery.
Mm-hmm.
And I hold up. It's like this little pin. And I hold it up. And I look at the child who is approximately over my desk, right? And I point to it. And I just mouth, is this yours? And her face turns bright red. And she's like, yes.
You know what? I just would have been like,
Yeah. So it was great. I went upstairs. She's a Girl Scout. And her mother was with her. And the little girl was too like embarrassed to say anything. But it was a charm from her bracelet that she probably been playing with. And it just fell off at that exact moment to remind me that I should be paying attention to the prayers. So it was hilarious to me.
Well, I mean, come on now. It's God, Goats, and Government. And you...
Literally a tap on the shoulder.
Like, hey, it's prayer happening here.
Right.
Reverend Senator.
I gave, honor to the prayer after that.
Absolutely. Well, I'm glad that you were able to return the charm. Maybe. This is how you got those cookies. I feel like that's just like you keep getting like the inside scoop, like, hey, you got a direct connect now.
Right.
Like this, like, hey, gave you your charm. Look out for me with the some understanding. But no, I'm sure that you have many moments during the week, but to me, that feels like a God moment of just like the tap on the shoulder of like, hey, be present, be here. Because so much of our time, we're constantly, I feel like, time traveling in a sense. We're never truly in the present, right? We're either thinking about what's going to happen or what has happened and how to rectify or how to shift that. So that was the drop from the sky, if you will.
That brought me right. I mean, I was just like, okay. I mean, I was able to put two and two together to figure out what happened, but in the instant moment, I was just like, yes, God, I will listen. I'm sorry. Like, I don't know what this man is praying about, but I am in it with him now.
Sometimes we need a reminder. Sometimes we need to tap on the shoulder. But so that isn't the only God moment I'm sure that you've had this week. But did you not lead Chaplain this week? As I said, like, I'm recapping, I'm going over the things, and this is just me outside looking in, and I'm looking, and I'm just like, my goodness, Senator Jackson is busy this week. So
it's true. So I was the chaplain of the day this week. It's true.
You weren't reading legislation before it goes.
I was actually reading legislation when I received the phone call that said, hey, in 5 minutes, can you be the chaplain of the day? Because the current chaplain of the day is not able to get here in time. So it was like truly an audible. I had 10 minutes. I'm not exaggerating. 10 minutes from the time that I received the phone call and I said, yes, I'll do it, to standing up and actually delivering a little message for my colleagues.
Well, I think we should share this message this week. What can you give us a setup of what it's about?
Yeah, I mean, it's actually not that fresh. I'll admit, I totally recycled something from the house that I did like 5 years ago. Okay. But only Josh McLaurin had heard it before, who used to be a House member. For everybody else, it was fresh. But I think it's a nice illustration about who Jesus was and some lessons that we can learn from him. And so I offered that to my Senate colleagues, and hopefully people got something from it. So here it is.
All right, let's check out the clip.
Well, thank you, Mr. President, and good morning. It's such an honor to be able to address my friends in this way. I want to begin today with a story. In the early first century, there was this great preacher and teacher named Jesus who first appeared on the scene in Palestine. Now, we don't know the extent of his academic pedigree. I mean, clearly he didn't graduate from UGA or anything like that. But we do know that Jesus had a reputation of being very smart, thoughtful, and a wise teacher. In fact, because generations after generations have shared stories about him, well, we know that Jesus is considered one of the greatest ethical and moral teachers of all times across religions. He is the one who made famous the edicts to love your neighbor, to clothe the naked, to feed the hungry, and to care for the prisoner. So one day, this great teacher, this great ethicist was going about his business as usual, surrounded by, let's say, his usual constituents. When suddenly a woman approached him with a request. Now, perhaps it was because of her accent, or maybe it was just the way she looked, but it's clear that she just wasn't among the kind of people that Jesus normally engaged with. And so this very busy teacher, well, he opted to ignore her. But she asked again, Jesus, can you help me? And perhaps he was feeling a bit perturbed. Maybe he was distracted by some other important task that he was on his way to. Maybe he was talking to a lobbyist. I don't know what was happening. But Jesus outright rebukes her. Put in modern language, the great teacher Jesus essentially says to her, look, I'm not here for you people.
but because she recognized his authority and his power to make real change in her life and in the lives of her loved ones, she asked him again, "Sir, will you please help me?" And in that moment, something changed for Jesus. It no longer mattered to him that she wasn't like the rest of the people that he tended to be advised by. Something shifted inside of that smart, wise, ethical teacher, and he changed his mind. He changed his mind. Dear friends, we were elected by the citizens of Georgia because people in our districts believed us to be smart, wise, and ethical leaders. Unlike Jesus, they even know when you went to UGA. And with that in mind, the people who elected us, they have given us the power, the authority, and the right to make very important decisions on their behalf. So I stand before you this day to urge you to open your ears, to hear from people that you might not usually listen to. I urge you to hear and to truly listen to the colleague who cast a ballot in November that looked nothing like yours. I invite you especially to respond to the pleas of those who may look or sound, vote, or even believe differently than you. May we learn from that great first century teacher named Jesus. And because of your great wisdom, because you are a great ethicist, may you walk into each conversation, whether it's on the floor or at the ropes, on the phone or in your office, may you walk into those conversations with the possibility that you might just get to change your mind. Let us pray, my friends.
I have the privilege of being able to observe the good Reverend on Sundays at Church of the Common Ground. So for her to, not that she's making it up on the fly, but I think being in that atmosphere and so much is happening, I felt like this might have been a little light work in the sense of being able to just pull from what you have. So thank you for sharing that clip. I'm sure someone got something from it, and it's helpful to have clergy on the floor.
It's true. Clergy who will say yes. But I did tell them that was my only sermon I keep in my back pocket, for those times. So can't call me again this month.
You don't have too many back pocket sermons.
Not that fit their very strict requirements, right? Like it has to be less than 5 minutes. It can't be perceived as partisan and political. But I mean, the gospel is political, so. I mean, it's just not something I can do very easily on the fly with perfection. So I don't have a lot in my back pocket.
Gotcha. Well, I think this is a good time to extend the invitation, just as you were extended the invitation to preach, to do chapel, but to also extend the invitation to our followers. If you haven't already done so, guys, at Kim for Georgia. Go follow, subscribe to her channel to keep up with what's happening with not only God, Goats, and Government, but all these wonderful things that we get to talk about and recap. You get to see photos and video footage of what's happening during the week under the Gold Dome and with Senator Jackson. So, at Kim for Georgia, check it out.
If you do, you'll see on my Twitter page, there was a live alligator on the floor.
What? Oh, whoa.
Is it a Twitter page? You'll see on my Twitter. So you'll see on. Wait, you were laughing about the alligator, not the Twitter page.
Now I'm laughing about the Twitter, but also, like, you lead with there's an alligator on the floor. Like, just go ahead. So, barnyard update, because it seems like I'm telling you, so much just this week. It feels very concentrated. So, just a random alligator?
Yeah, so it was Okefenokee Swamp Day, which I actually thought it was for 4-H Day because it was also 4-H Day.
Okay.
And she was wearing green, but apparently it was for Okefenokee Swamp. And so she legit, you'll see if you go on my Twitter. Like, I don't post on Twitter very much myself. Like, the team is good at that, but I felt compelled to share on Twitter that there was an alligator. Like, I got to touch it. It was great. And very random, I admit. It was super random.
Wow. So, did the alligator have a name?
Oh, I didn't go that far.
See, I like to know what's going on because, look, what is it? Like, when you find yourself, they say, like, in, like, stressful situations or it's, like, high intensity, like, build, like, some sort of intimate connection so that, like, hey, like, I don't know, I see you, you see me, like, hey, Abigail the alligator, hi, I'm Kim, you know, like, just establish
right. I mean, I did pet it, but I mean, that's the day that we had, I mean, we heard actual bills on the floor, and so I couldn't, like, stay and have a conversation with the alligator,
okay,
because I had to, like, go vote no on some really bad bills. So
I mean, did your animals treat you differently when you got home? Did they feel that you had been around a reptile?
Could they smell
like
the alligator on me?
Yeah,
I don't think so. I don't think so. It was okay.
Okay, so this reminds me of a really sweet joke that my godson gets tickled behind, and I hope that he will always laugh at this. But what do you call an alligator in a vest?
I don't know.
An investigator.
Awesome.
It's incredibly cheesy.
It's so cheesy.
But
Thank
it makes him laugh, and I hope that it brings someone else, you know, joy. And then, so yes,
much gratitude to Cade for a perfect size child joke. I love it.
It's perfect. All right, so listen, well, we've had our barnyard update. We talked about God. We talked about government. Also, what's coming up just so happens that when this episode drops, it'll be Valentine's Day. So I think this is a good space, if you don't mind, to talk about love.
Oh,
yeah.
Indeed.
We can, look, God, ghosts, and government. Love edition. No, just... But where are you? Like, so in all these moments that you've had this week, it is a simple question. Where have you seen love? Where have you felt love?
Oh, yeah, that's such a great question. A couple of things. You know, I have these hard and fast rules that there are dinners every night. I could go out to dinner 5 times, 6 times, 7 times. I mean, I could go to multiple dinners in one night. But I have the hard and fast rule that I only do 2 dinners out without my spouse, and never on a Friday night. And so part of that is to maintain the love and romance in my own life, is that I come home for dinner. But I think love in a more kind of general platonic way I experienced was when I stepped up and said, yeah, I'll be the chaplain of the day last minute. And my colleagues, I mean, they knew it was last minute, right? Like, they all knew. And, you know, I watched them come in and really show kindness and love towards me and thanking me. They actually listened. Like, people gave me words back from what I said. And so that was really great to see. And then the last thing I'll share, so my public safety bill, it's about suicide. There are some really hard, like, no's when it comes to that topic on who are members of the Senate. And Senator Calzert is one of those. Like, there's nothing that I can do to that bill that will make him vote yes on it. And he happened to be on the insurance committee, so he heard that bill. But the loving thing that he did was that he said, you know where I am on this. I'm not going to make a big deal of it, though. And Senator Calzert, he's a senior legislator. He is, he's a well-respected Republican. He had the power. Through his influence, he could have completely derailed that bill.
Wow.
He absolutely could. And he said, I'm not going to do that to you. And he really stood down. He asked one question, And that was it. And so I felt like that was a really loving thing. I know there are people out there who think that Kowser is just a horrible person, and I, every day I get to see a softer side of him. That does feel really loving, and I really appreciate that.
That's beautiful. Well, I hope that you continue to feel the love. I know that this session you're focusing on community as well, and it sounds like bit by bit that community is continuing to form around you, and that you are a significant part of the community here under the Gold Dome. Also, I hope that you are taking on that self-love, that self-care, and getting some rest. I know last week you were coming in, energy was low, but you still made time to keep us up to date with what's happening here. For those who are watching, we are coming to you from Senator Jackson's office. We change locations sometimes, but we go where the good senator goes, and wherever she has the space to make sure to have this conversation. It's important to have these updates, so we thank you for that. So again, I hope that you are finding that self-care, that self-love, getting some rest so that you can continue, because it was a very concentrated week. Much has happened, but as always in true fashion, I have to ask you, is there any, because it was a lot this week, y'all. Is there anything that we missed? Is there anything that you want your constituents and your listeners to know?
Yeah, so a couple of things. I need to take my own advice. Last week I said to folks, listen, people are going to drop bills that are really, really awful and inflammatory, and the news will make a big deal out of it, and don't get your heart, right up. I have to take my own advice.
Was it watch, wait, and listen?
That's right. Watch, wait, and listen. This week, just today, in fact, a bill was dropped that would prohibit children who are trans from being able to take puberty blockers, so the medication, right? So on its surface, it's about not allowing children to get surgeries, which surgeries don't happen in Georgia on minors. In terms of gender conforming surgeries. But this says you can't take puberty blockers either. You can't prescribe any type of hormones, any of those things. And I will admit I got a little ruffled, because this is an issue that matters a lot to me, and we all know that trans children need to have medical care because it's good for their mental health, right? And so we need to balance those things. Anyway, that bill's been dropped. Don't get anxious. Don't get anxious just yet. We'll see if it moves. And if it moves, then I will raise the alarms. The same is true. Senator Randy Robertson has a whole package of bills that take us backwards in the area of criminal justice reform. He's getting rid of cash bail. I mean, Sharitha, this matters so much to us. Our folks would have to put up bail money to get out of jail if they got arrested for criminal trespass, or for what I call running off at the mouth, but what the police call terroristic threats and obstruction. They'd have to put up bail for that if this bill were to pass. And so, yeah, I see your face. I don't know. y'all can't see her face. But
sometimes I run off at the mouth.
Yeah. Our folks who sleep outside, our members of Common Ground, they get arrested for typically 3 things. One is criminal trespass, because they find a place that's warm or that's covered that they can sleep in.
Correct. 2,
it's obstruction, because that's very easy for a police officer to use for whatever. They just use that very willy-nilly. And then 3 is making terroristic threats, and that happens because many times they're insane.
Yeah, it's mental health.
It's a mental health issue, right? It's a mental illness. And so they say things, they pop up at the mouth, and next thing you know, they're being charged with a misdemeanor for terroristic threats. Senator Robertson's bill would make that an absolutely, you have to put up money, legit, hardcore, stone cold cash money, in order to get out of jail for a misdemeanor.
We just talked about this in the sense of that our jails are not mental health institutions, and they're not equipped for this.
Yeah.
So I'm doing my hand gestures, help me to understand.
But again, I'm worried about it, but I'm not going to let my blood pressure get up. It was heard in committee today, but it was tabled. So no action was taken on it because I think he recognized that there are some problems with it. I mean, basically, I just asked him. I mean, I gave him the real life scenario, which he was kind of dismissive of. He was like, we're not talking about hypotheticals. Well, every bill that we write about is about a hypothetical, right? Like, that's kind of how legislation works. But, you know, I gave the example of what happens to a person who's experiencing homelessness who gets arrested for criminal trespass and has no money. And he was like, well, you know, there are lots of organizations out there that would pay the bill. You know who that organization is? It'd be us. It'd be Church of the Common Ground. And
we don't have that $1 billion endowment that we're working on. So if we had the billions,
right,
with the B, perhaps that would be a viable option, but we do not.
We don't. And I'm just like, I know we're trying to finish, but I want people to understand what it is to bail someone out, because I know that this is not something that everybody experiences. Mm-hmm. So if one of our parishioners did end up locked up for something like this, sure, I could go and pay the $100 bail. But when I do that, I have to sign, and I have to give my name, your name, my wife's name, every job that I've ever worked at, my mama's name and phone number. I have to give all of that to a bondsman. And I have to sign saying that I promise to make sure that that person shows up for court. And if they don't, then they're going to come and find me. Now,
become liable.
I become personally liable for someone who may, in fact, just simply be mentally ill. And there's no way for me to guarantee. How many months has it been since we saw Brother Ashley?
Yeah, it's been quite a few.
Right.
And he just reappeared.
Right, he just popped up.
Yeah.
You know, some of these folks are just impossible to keep up with.
Yeah.
And so for me to have to sign for that is just not okay. Whereas if they sign themselves out, then they take on that liability and that personal responsibility. It's asking too much of a nonprofit, of a church. And it's not like I can bail someone out as Church of the Common Ground.
Right.
It's Kim Jackson is bailing someone out for a freaking misdemeanor. So, again, don't be alarmed. Didn't pass committee. Still being worked on. There are a lot of alarming bills out there. There's another homelessness bill that's out there. Still, don't be alarmed.
Don't tell me that.
It's out there.
I won't be alarmed.
Don't be alarmed. Just be aware.
Okay.
And listen in next week, and I'll probably tell you what you need to be calling about.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Senator Jackson, for your time. As always, greatly appreciated. And I hope our followers continue to keep up with this journey. I extend the invitation to you. If you have any questions for Senator Jackson about God Goes to Government or what's happening under the Gold Dome, please drop those in the comments of the episode or send us something on social media. We're on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Kim for Georgia. Let us know your thoughts. Let us know what you think of this episode.
All right, guys. Until next time, be easy. Please like, subscribe, and share this podcast with someone you know.